Before getting to the heart of the video, there's something I have to get out of the way. Disaster Report 4 is not a good game. It's rough in almost every possible way. Graphically, it looks 2 generations behind, and it runs about as badly as it looks. Animations are abysmal, it suffers from constant clipping between all sorts of objects, including the ground itself, and frame rate fluctuations often devolve into an absolute mess. Actually, playing Disaster Report fares better, but not by much. Expect to aimlessly squander plenty of time just trying to figure out where to go next. Solutions are vague and frustratingly arbitrary. To put it simply, Disaster Report 4 feels like it crams every bad stereotype the adventure genre has into a single game. And yet, there are aspects of the experience I just can't let go of. Parts that I think are worth praising, and plenty of things I wish showed up in other games. At a basic level, I really appreciate the setup and setting of Disaster Report 4. You're a regular person trying to survive during a catastrophic natural disaster, not a hero or a chosen one or any of the typical roles. There are no weapons nor combat of any sort. Only by helping or manipulating others do you move forward. One of my favorite things about Disaster Report 4 is how it examines humanity in the midst of a massive earthquake through a number of small stories. You deal with a very stressed teacher who doesn't have the respect of her students, stare down a jewel-obsessed murderer, reunite separated lovers, face off against a greedy convenience store owner, and gather clues to solve a mysterious arson. While there are plenty of moments of justice and happiness to be found within these stories, there's also a refreshing amount of cold realism that springs up from time to time. Moments when something ends tragically and abruptly, or simply doesn't work out. By sprinkling in these darker additions, it lends the world some teeth, which other games could stand to benefit from. With that said, I equally adore Disaster Report 4's capacity for goofiness. It reminds me of a PS2 game in the best way. Goofiness comes in many forms here, not the least of which is the abundance and range of dialogue options you have throughout. While the actual choices seem to have little effect on how things ultimately play out, they can nonetheless be very entertaining. They're the expected options like always being selfless and virtuous, but it's how off-the-wall things get that really makes the conversations memorable. You can hit on and confess your love to a surprising number of people, or if you're especially cold-hearted, you can choose the most blunt and inappropriate choice for every circumstance.
それじゃあ、今すぐエンディングを始めてください。
今すぐエンディングですか。わかりました。とにかく水を。
Really driving home the humor are the absolutely stupid outfits you can either find or buy. Do you want to run around a newly destroyed Tokyo as a cowboy or a cowgirl? Yeehaw, my friend. Going Wild West is really one of the more tame examples. There's nothing like being part of a melodramatic cutscene wearing a Tengu mask to completely change the mood.
おい、大変だ。百合ヶ坂マルシェに泥棒が入ったらしい。犯人はこの界隈をうろうろしていた2人組らしい。2人組？まさか君たちが。
Just as bizarre are the different collectible compasses hidden throughout. One is a sushi compass with a drop of wasabi always pointing north, and another is an anime girl on a surfboard. It's nonsensical, but the unpredictability makes it much more fun to explore to see what dumb thing you're going to pick up next. The silliness helps balance out both the seriousness of the other parts of the game, as well as the general tedium of exploration. It's the same sort of irreverent attitude you saw in many titles during the PS2 era, where there were all sorts of quirky unlockables to find or work toward. While such things aren't exactly non-existent now, fun items or outfits are often relegated to pre-order bonuses, collector's edition bonuses, or DLC. One last thing I want to call attention to is how genuinely surprising the earthquakes can feel. Although they're seemingly always triggered by just walking to a certain spot, it's hard to predict exactly when they're going to happen since they're fairly well spaced out. The screen shakes violently and the sound is so overwhelming it swallows everything else. If your character doesn't properly brace themselves, they fall right over and tremendous dust clouds blind you for a moment. For a game with such terrible production values, it's impressive how monstrous and anxiety-inducing these situations are. It's also refreshing that the biggest threat you face isn't an alien, demon, or some fantasy monster, but rather nature itself. Now, to reiterate, I don't think Disaster Report 4 is a good game, especially not at the absolutely absurd asking price of $60, but I'm very grateful to have played through it. I didn't know what would happen next, either in terms of what I would be doing or the tone the story would strike. It's also commendable that a lot of the situations are more down to earth and relatable than the usual video game fare. A quality I also like about Catherine, which explores the messy dynamics of a committed relationship. Although I do wish Disaster Report 4's better qualities were found inside a tighter and more robust game, I nonetheless appreciate the peculiar and chaotic charm of this totally weird trip.
選ばれた人なんですよ。
ここで十分癒されて、私たちと一緒に他の人々を助けてあげましょう。
豊富な食料、明るい部屋、清潔そうな服装の人々。それらを見て、私はこれは危険な匂いがするわ。